Hi, so in this video I'm going to be talking about some of the API endpoints that are available in the country configuration microservice and explain what these endpoints do. So some of these API endpoints offer some interoperability capabilities, but interoperability in general is explained thoroughly in our documentation, and the APIs for example, searching OpenCRVS data or submitting a notification to OpenCRVS with, say, a partial application, integrating with OpenCRVS webhooks, etc. That's really about interoperability with external services. What I'm talking about today is not related to that. It's about the Countryconfig Microservice and the endpoints that are there. So they're in this folder called API. The first endpoint is about returning the application configuration settings, the defaults which we configured, and they get returned to OpenCRVS core and stored in the config microservice so that they can be distributed to all the backend services, the client application. That's what the application endpoint is all about. Then you have the certificate configuration endpoint, and that is returning the fonts that are available that are required on the certificate. So we talked about that in certificate configuration. We have the content endpoints, and this is returning the language content that we've configured, the SMS content to backend services such as the notification microservice, which will localize and send notifications, SMS notifications back here, and they will be broadcast to the staff and informants in the notification endpoints here. So this is the content endpoints, is just about text content that's involved in the clients and SMS notifications. It's the notification endpoint that you will be amending to send messages to your SMTP server, or perhaps to a different SMTP API which requires different code, or you could be sending something to an SMS service. We've got example here for Infobit, but of course you might use a different one. You might use Twilio, you might use Clickatel, you might use an entirely different API, and so you can amend that code here. So that's why we have this endpoint here, so you can amend that code. We have a dashboards endpoint, and this returns an SQL query, a MongoDB query, a MongoDB query to our dashboards microservice in core that will, on a daily basis, store entries in the Metabase SQL database. So what it will do is it will query OpenCRVS. You can customize the query to search for any metric you like, and that metric will then be returned from OpenCRVS MongoDB and inserted into the Metabase SQL database, so that you can render the Metabase dashboard UI that you like for your business intelligence graphs. So when you've customized that SQL file to render the metrics in the way that you want, you copy that SQL file and you put it in here. I think that's in a different part actually. I think it might be yeah, I think you have to put it. Let me just check. Yeah, you put it in the infrastructure folder. So when you've got that, but there's a whole video about how to configure Metabase, but that's where you eventually put the SQL file, and then that gets copied up onto your server. So this particular dashboards API is just about the MongoDB query to generate your dashboard data. And you also have a map, a GeoJSON map that will appear in the dashboards that you can click to interactively view business analytics based on locations in your country. So you can change this map file. You can see that file is loaded here in this handler, and there's a whole other video about dashboard configuration where you can read about that. There is the event registration endpoint. Now, this is an endpoint which is called when an application has gone through validation and a registrar has clicked register. And we will be tracking that registration through the system, the audit trail, who registered it, what's all the data, etc. And that entire bundle in Fire will arrive at this endpoint. And it allows you, if you want, to customize the format of the registration number. So it could be your country has legislative approaches to how a birth registration number or death registration number should be created. And you can customize that here. The way that we do it is we simply get the birth date the year of birth, and then we append it to a tracking ID, and so that's our BRN format. But you can format it any way you want. You can also create many other additional identifiers. So you've got 3 more custom identifiers you could create. So perhaps you're integrating with another system in a synchronous manner or asynchronous manner, and you want to generate some more identifiers for an individual. You can return them all to OpenCRVS, and OpenCRVS can store them. So simply take a look at the event registration API, look at the responses. So, if something goes wrong, we are returning a specific error message called a boom error, which is a happy.js error response. And this is very useful because if this goes back, what will happen in OpenCRVS UI is that registration will be rejected. And so therefore it's possible for you to resolve whatever technical issue was up with your downstream system and resubmit the registration. So returning the correct kind of error will mean that no registration data is lost, even if something goes wrong with your external system. You can also see where a success response should go. So you can either choose to return this response in a synchronous manner or asynchronously, any way you like. So the event registration API allows you that point just before registration where you can decide what is the format of the number and what other systems need to know about this, or perhaps perform some other validations before you say technically, yes, this event can be registered. If you're happy with the way that we do things, you don't have to edit anything. You can just leave what we have. This is fine to leave as it is if you don't want to mess with that. We have the fonts endpoint. This is different to the certificate fonts endpoint. This is just returning the fonts that the client UI uses. So we use Noto Sans. It will handle all Latin, Cyrillic alphabets. But if you're working with another character set, you may need to return more fonts. Say, for example, if you're working in Bengali or Vietnamese or anything like that, Arabic, for example, you might need another font. There is the tracking ID endpoint, and very similar to the event registration endpoint, this allows you to change the format of the tracking ID. That's been a requirement in some countries as well, that a different tracking ID format was requested. So up to you to decide if you want to customize our tracking ID or not. So those are the endpoints which exist inside the Countryconfig Microservice, not to be confused with the other APIs that are available in OpenCRVS core for interoperating with external systems. These are all about the APIs which help OpenCRVS to function. Thank you.